Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rajan Pereira. Indian lenders want the government to provide up to $2 billion to set up a bad bank at a time when their heavy pile of SAR debt is expected to double in size due to the COVID-19 pandemic, according to media reports. The banks have proposed that the government set up an asset reconstruction company to initially buy non-performing loans worth up to a total of 1 trillion rupees. The Indian Banks Association has drafted the proposal and sent it to the government and the Reserve Bank of India for their approval, according to the same media reports. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the concept of a bad bank. Joining me on the program today are Subodh Kaushik, former General Manager, Punjab National Bank, Arvind Virmani, Chairman, EGROW Foundation and former Executive Director, IMF, and K.A. Badrinath, Senior Journalist. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Dr. Virmani, let me begin the program with you first. Let's first try and analyze and understand the concept of a bad bank.
So the idea is that, there are two contending views. One view was that if a bank's NPAs go bad, then they know their customers best and are in a best position to retrieve or get more of their NPAs converted to repayment than if it's a completely separate entity who doesn't know the clients. So that has really been the argument against the bad bank. The argument for the bad bank is that you can set up a specialized institution into which all the banks will put their NPAs, and then that institution can focus only on resolving the issues, recovering as much as possible, etc. So the argument is of specialization, plus that the normal, the banks can therefore then focus on their normal operations as if getting a new lease of life, so to say, to start the whole process again. There's one more issue which comes up in the discussions, and that is that unless the processes which gave rise to these excessive NPAs, which are too large to handle by the banks, which is a normal process all over the world, just by shoving them into the bad bank will give an incentive to restart the whole process and do the bad things again. And therefore, it must go hand in hand with a reform of the system which generated NPAs. So these are the broad arguments which have been weighed. And the problem has been that the scale seemed to go up and down. So nobody could decide, okay, let's go for a bad bank. Let's not go for it. Let's do something else. So that's the broad overall perspective.
Okay, all right. So Mr. Kaushik, what are some of the proposals that have been made really with regards to creation of a bad bank?
Hey, this proposal was originally mooted when Mr. Piyush Goyal was holding charge in interim as finance minister, and from that point onward, this discussion has been on in the industry. But as Dr. Virmani has rightly mentioned, it carries a moral hazard, because you are actually the right person. The person who gives the loan should be able to recover it also, and he knows the customer better than anybody else. At the ground zero, the manager has interacted, the other field functionaries have interacted with the borrower. So there are more fundamental issues to be addressed at that level. And unless that system is actually taken care of, the NPAs will continue to be there. So it doesn't solve problem. It solves problem temporarily to the extent that you put all your bad loan, your balance sheet looks good, your probably depositor have more faith in you because it looks quite hunky-dory. But essentially speaking, the asset recovery companies have been around and they have been buying the bad loan from the banks for all these days. So what actually needs to be done is something which is fundamentally different. And therefore, this idea of making bad bank can be good only and only if there is a simultaneous major structural reform in the way the banks function. A. B. There should be a clear focus on the very principles of the lending, and there should not be any leeways given in that particular framework, because essentially the decisions which are credit decision are dependent on the available information at the time of sanctioning of loan. Once you have disbursed the loan, then there has to be a continuous monitoring whether it is actually in line with the projections which were given, and what are the factors which are affecting it, affecting the performance, and what needs to be done as a corrective measure. So if those things are taken care of concurrently, then probably we will not see so many bad loans. The system itself has to be spruced up to handle all this.
Okay, all right. K. Badrinath, let me take the point forward now. So like, Subodh Kaushik was suggesting that this is not a new idea. It has been around for some time now, and it has been touted in the past as well. So why is it being revisited at this juncture?
Now, two things, Frank. One is the latest proposal from the Indian Banks Association calls for a bad bank to handle non-performing assets where fraud has been detected. Now, this part of fraud being detected, and after that still you want $2 billion to finance a bad bank, is completely bad in spirit, in content, as well as intention. My guess is wherever there is a fraud, immediately, if it has been detected, then immediately the enforcement agencies will have to step in. The boards of banks, which have been seeking a lot of freedom, financial freedom and decision-making freedom, need to take complete responsibility rather than allowing the frauds to happen, then handing over all those assets to an asset reconstruction company, and you want it to be, these fraudulent NPAs which have been created need to be bought by the asset reconstruction company at book value. How is it? World over, nowhere have you seen that there is a fraud. The bank allows the fraud to happen. The board doesn't take the responsibility. Then those assets where frauds have been detected need to be handed over to a bad bank. What kind of this irresponsibility can IBA, resort to? This is totally unacceptable. For the simple reason, some people, dash it off as a moral hazard, and you don't need to think too much about it. And let us start the, credit offtake again, and let the balance sheets be clean. How can the bank's balance sheets be clean if the intention is wrong, if your systems are wrong, and if you are not taking responsibility at any level, and you go on pushing the finance ministry for more and more powers, and the Reserve Bank, stands, stays, just a spectator. So why is it that you need a bad bank to handle fraudulent assets? This is a question, fundamental question that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Second part, if you allow me for just 1 second. Second part is that, okay, if there are non-performing assets, there are business failures, and you want to handle them separately, you already have, insolvency and bankruptcy code, where there's a lot of action going on anyways. So why do you need a mechanism where you want to hand over these non-performing assets to a bad bank, especially the fraudulence which has been detected in non-performing assets in the piling of NPAs? How can that happen? I don't support this at all.
Okay. So, Dr. Virmani, I saw you shaking your head while Mr. Badrinath was speaking. So he raised a fundamental question. You heard that. What is the purpose of a bad bank?
So there's an alternative perspective from what Badri is giving. I didn't, of course, know that this proposal, the current proposal, I don't know the details. I didn't know that it is only for assets which are, where there is a hint of fraud. And I'll tell you the opposite side of what Mr. Badri has said. And that is that in such situations, the members of the bank, the staff, the whole structure actually tries to suppress this information. That is the experience we have. So in some ways, handing it over to any other body, and the best way to do it is a financially expert body. So as I said, the bad bank would be a specialized institution. So in a sense, they would be able to take a more objective view of this thing instead of, having this dual structure of the actual perpetrators trying to suppress it and hide the thing, while the investigating agencies are let loose and people complain that they harass everybody, not just the people who are directly involved. So I think that would be the opposite perspective from what Badri is saying. And that could be in the minds if this is the proposal. As I said, I don't know what the exact proposal is. But if this is the proposal, this I suspect would be the argument of the government and those people who are generally not in the business of committing frauds, let's say. They want to actually have protection for themselves. So they are quite happy with the system because, the honest people, the people who don't want to do all this stuff will say, okay, if there is any hint of thing, you please take it out, you investigate, don't blame me later that I have suppressed some. If some person in my organization who was involved tries to destroy evidence or suppress something, then you will blame me. You just take all this, you investigate and do whatever is necessary. Then you can't blame me for things which I am not responsible for. Maybe it happened 2 years ago, it happened 5 years ago. At least the current chairman or MD or whatever is then separated from the thing and he can proceed with his normal business, confident that he is an honest person and there is no issue there. So in that sense, that would be the counter argument.
Okay, all right. I'm coming to you, Badri. Just hold on. Let me go across to Subodh Kaushik first because he's been patiently listening to both sides of the story and been looking at both sides of the coin. So let him come in as a former banker as well, and let's hear his views. So, Mr. Kaushik, where do you stand as far as this issue is concerned? You heard both the speakers before you.
Yeah. See, Frank, it is not only for the fraud. The bad bank will take all the assets which are NPA right now. So there will be viable cases, there will be non-viable cases, and there will be cases which are basically the fraudulent thing. Now, coming to other point, which is very, very important, is that why the account have become NPA. So that needs to be looked into to avoid such things in the future. This is what is required today. We cannot continue to just shift them to another new bank and then continue to do the same thing. I am of very firm view that whatever assets are created out of the bank loans are basically the national assets. So if the people who are running the show are not competent to do it, they should be immediately shifted out of the scene and somebody who can actually run that show gainfully for the country should be handed over. Now that was the purpose of the IBC. Now I have seen in past 2 years, the IBC has also not been able to deliver the things within that given time frame somehow. It was a very time-bound process which was supposed to shift the ownership of assets to another management, which is very, very critical and essential. So unless we also address those issues, it will be a futile exercise. It can be a very good exercise provided what Dr. Virmani has said, I endorse him, that somebody very objectively looking at all these things and then taking the rightful action. And on the other hand, the persons who are not actually the culprits, they work fearlessly and they continue to grow the business. But essentially coming back to the first point, which I mentioned in the beginning also, it is the business of bank to lend and recover. So when it comes to recovery, it should not be logically with somebody else. Because anything going bad, I shift it to somebody else is not the right way to do it. When we compile a confidential report on a borrower, and in my days as a young officer, I can tell you, we used to go around asking people that who this guy is, how is related to whom, and what is his entire background. So once you do the complete background check, you are in touch with their staff at different levels and have the information of day-to-day development, then such things do not happen. I don't remember that any loan which I did became NPA in my entire career of 35 years. And even when the account became NPA, the bank was able to recover its money. So you have to assess the borrower, his repayment capability, his intentions, his competence to basically run that type of business, and should not be, I would say, desperate to just grow the balance sheet. Because we are basically trustees of the public money. And a trustee has to look at this aspect that yes, this money is I am holding is on somebody else's behalf. I have to return this money with interest. Once you treat that this money, if it was mine, personal money, whether I would have given it to this fellow or not, your judgment is going to be right.
All right. So fixing responsibility and fixing accountability could be a good way forward is what you're suggesting. So, K. Badrinath, let me take that point forward with you. So what Subodh Kaushik is suggesting is that when you give out loans, you should also be responsible for the recovery of it because you're the one giving it out. So the need of the hour, would you say, is fixing accountability and responsibility and banking reforms as a whole rather than just looking at a bad bank?
My guess is, first and foremost, the bank managements have been pushing the government towards providing more and more flexibility in terms of decision-making process. And they have also been flagging issues that the innocent people who are upright executives of the bank should not be harassed. After that, the government has come up with a notification which talks about, and it has been backed and endorsed by the Reserve Bank of India, saying that, look, there will be a vetting committee which vets all the proposed investigations before even an investigation begins. When all these, steps have been taken, why do you need a bad bank? You want to get rid of the responsibility of what you have done, whatever fraud you have done. No, this is not possible. See, it is like Mrs. Subodh was talking about, it's the public money where you are only a trustee and you are being paid for what you are doing. You are not doing anybody any charity by being there. If you cannot run it, just leave. Simple. If ICICI Bank can sack Madam Chanda Kochar, though despite the resistance, why can't public sector bank chief executives be sacked if they have done any fraud? You don't want to take responsibility. You don't want to lend with responsibility. So you're easily taking a route out to park lendable resources with Reserve Bank of India under the reverse repo window. No, this is not the way to go about. No. One is you wanted reform. The IBC came in. Then you wanted, very much vetting, some changes in the IBC which were underway. Then the Parliament of both the houses of Parliament have, cleared all the banking reforms that were possible. Then even Reserve Bank of India was standing in support of all the public sector banks, chief executives, and their working. So if all that is there, I don't think there is any case for a bad bank. Even in Europe and US, wherever they have been created, the recoveries have been very limited. The success stories have been very limited. In the case of the asset reconstruction companies that have been set up with participation from different banks in India in 2009 and 10, these are the only 2 years where the recoveries were about 80 to 90%. Otherwise, continuously in the last 10, 15 years, it is less than 40%. If that is the case, we don't have any case for setting up a bad bank in this country. In case you need to reform the IBC process, in case you need to change the way the things are happening in the banking system, we need to look at them differently rather than going after bad bank.
Okay, all right. So, Dr. Virmani, what would be the ideal shape and structure of a bad bank? And is it the right time to have a bad bank?
So let me, the way to think about it is what is the alternative which has been proposed and what are the structures tried in other countries. Now, you actually at the beginning of the program asked why is it that we are again considering this thing at this point, as Mr. Has pointed out that this has been on the table, so to say, for a long time. Why is it being revived? And the reason is the pandemic and the lockdown. You had 15 years of, by the way, I support his point completely. It's over the last, I don't know, 10 years or so that this whole issue of corruption, we've known about telephone banking for a long time, but somehow, it's after his time probably that suddenly people, I never used to suspect the actual bankers in the public sector. I always thought it was the telephone, to put it in a simple way. But there have been allegations, there have been news stories, there have been inside information that I randomly received that the quality of the people, that they also began to get involved. Okay, let's leave it at that. So there is a legacy of these bad things accumulating. Then you had the growth recession last year. Then you got a pandemic on top of that. So there are fears that the whole system could freeze. Suppose NPAs double or triple during this pandemic crisis, the whole structure of at least the public sector banking system could get frozen. So what is the alternative to bank? And then I'll tell you what the way to refine the bank is. The asset construction companies. One method is that the bank, this way, when you have a NPA, you have to make 100% provisions. If there was a market for bad loans, ACCs, etc., but there isn't, unfortunately. But think about it, if we had a very efficient market of asset construction companies competing against each other, you could sell that asset and then for 40%, 60%, whatever, and then use that capital for further lending. You see, this way you're 100% stuck, okay? Now, the problem is this, the bankers say, given the environment, I agree with, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name, Subodh, that in his time, probably this issue was not there. But since then, the issue has come up that nobody trusts them. They say, somebody will say, oh, you sold it for 40, but it was worth 45. Then the whole process will start again of blaming, finding out whether he is actually corrupt, not corrupt, etc. So that is the problem which is being struggled with. I have nothing for the bad bank per se, but what they are aiming at is that in Malaysia, they set up a complicated system which got around this problem. So it's easier in a bad bank where government, where the public sector banks and others who want to join have equity share, because then you can set up an arrangement in which you do a sale, which may be a little high or low, but there is a condition that if the value of that asset goes beyond certain value, let's say you sold it for 40 and the value goes to 80, then after a certain minimum, let's say 20%, just for the sake of argument, if it goes beyond 60 to 80, everybody shares in that 20% extra, right? So there is a mechanism which then you can go back and say the politician or somebody else can't say, oh, but this was worth 80 and you sold it for 40, you must be corrupt. And because part of that thing comes back to you. So that is what I believe they are trying to work out. I am not asserting that the bad bank is the best thing in the world, that ACC can't be, but I wouldn't rule it out of hand without serious consideration of the pros and cons.
Okay, so the bad bank will ensure that normal banks don't get choked, especially when things get out of hand, is what you're suggesting. That will be the ideal, really, job of a bad bank. All right. So, Mr. Kaushik, what's the best way forward then in the present scenario?
No, I agree with Dr. Virmani that we need to go with a calibrated approach, because right now there are other factors also. You see, today what an asset is worth because of the slowdown and then real estate taking a hit and then COVID coming in. Now the real estate is really low today. So whatever was worth, say, 1 rupee yesterday is worth probably 50 paisa today. So there may be reasons of a lower valuation, and if when the market turns, the economy looks up, the same assets will be again at 1 or 1 plus value. And this has happened. The cycles keep coming up and down, we have seen in our life. So what Dr. Virmani is saying is very practical, that once you fix up a price, there is a committee which reviews it and then it is sold. And if there is a profit beyond a point, then it comes back to the bank or it is shared among the participants in consortium on a given basis. So that keeps the things very transparent, and very healthy system can be developed. Right now, yes, one consideration can be that instead of looking at the huge NPAs on the balance sheet of all the banks, we can put it at some place and then look for the expanding our loan books, whatever the new measures have been announced by the government. Banks with total capability they have go to support it, and then
Right.
economy is not back on track. So that a way, yes, and it should be given a serious consideration before we say yes to it or reject it. I am in particular circumstances agreeable to give it a due consideration. That is what I am saying.
All right. And K. Badrinath, close the show for us with your quick concluding remark.
Yes, the point is that even with the pandemic, and there are likely business, failures that might be there, which are very genuine and which are not within the hands of the businessman. If you recall, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that no new IBC cases will be taken up in next 1 year. We will not add to the list of IBC cases during next 1 year. That way, a lot of cushion has been provided to the banks. Second part, many of the loans whether have been guaranteed fully by the government of India at 100%. So the recovery shouldn't be an issue in at least certain categories. Third part is that if it is a willful default, then it should go through the due process of enforcement and nothing to do with the handing over to the bad bank. If it is a genuine business failure, it should go to the IBC process, which has the backing of the Parliament of India. And in a democracy like ours, we need to be very transparent in terms of how we are dealing with our banks. And fifth point is that if the banks and financial institutions seek freedom to, decide, then they should also be held responsible for the decisions they take. And you cannot say that, well, I've taken a call and it's none of my business whether the money comes back or not.
Right.
After all, if you are a trustee, you need to take responsibility for it.
Okay, all right. On that note, then I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's it from me. See you again next time.